Ranking Show with us now. Two members of the so-called Deficit Super Committee, Democratic Congressman from Maryland and ranking member of the House Budget Committee, Representative Chris Van Hollen, as well as Democratic representative representing Lizard's Thicket. He's also Assistant Democratic Leader, Congressman Jim Clyburn. It's always great seeing you guys. USC, baby.
Absolutely. Bring the tide on. Bring the tide on.
We're staying away. But Tavis Smiley's still here.
So you guys probably can just hang back and take vacation because there's really nothing going on.
Nothing going on.
Nothing for you to do.
Happening. Only 74 days left before we're supposed to come up with a plan, right?
Yeah.
Well, Chris, Anthony Weiner's seat coming up. You obviously are focusing on that very closely. Problems when the president's approval rating in this very Democratic district's at 18% independent. What's going to happen in that race?
The Democrats going to win at the end of the day. But you're right. This is a tough race. You have a special election, so turnout is key,
right?
Which means you need energy. And right now, you know, when you look at the race, it's going to be a challenge to get some of the Democrats out. But at the end of the day, I think they're going to be there.
Jim, try to explain this to me because it's fascinating. We've had a lot of back and forth between Republicans and Democrats.
Sure.
The president's seen his numbers go down. Republicans have seen their numbers go down. Ugliness, real ugliness over the debt ceiling raising.
Right.
But it seems right now, if you look at these special elections in the polls, it's the Democrats that are getting it on the chin in New York and in Nevada. Why is that? Why is that?
Well, it's hard to say. A few months ago, it was Republicans. You remember?
No.
We won this big Republican seat right here in New York.
Right.
So these things go back and forth. It's called the yin and yang of politics.
How about because there's no jobs?
Well, that's quite true. People, there's a confidence level that we need to achieve if we're going to be most successful. And consumer confidence is way down now. And that's one of the things that we talk about all the time, Chris and I, in trying to do our work with this Joint Select Committee, are particularly concerned about consumer confidence, because when people have confidence, they'll go out and participate, spending money, going to ball games, but they're not going to do it when they don't have confidence.
And there is a real problem. This is a crisis in confidence. And not only is it consumers, but it's banks. I don't know if you all saw Joe Nocera's piece, and I think it was Saturday's New York Times, about big banks still not making loans.
But
I mean, they get them, but they won't give them.
The real crisis here is these guys are on a committee that have got to figure out how to cut the deficit, to cut the national debt.
Seriously.
At the same time, we got to stimulate the economy back in the workforce. It is a terrible
position. And at the same time, the federal budget expires September 30th. Our fiscal year ends September 30th. So we're just days away from that. And how's that going to complicate the work you have to do, the fact that we're so already up on this fiscal year ending for the federal government?
But look, the president's going to submit his plan today to the Congress, the jobs plan that he talked about before the joint session last week. And for us on the joint committee, we see our charge as being really two things. Number one is to work to get the economy moving again, because the fastest and most effective way to begin to reduce the deficit over the long term is to put people back to work.
Absolutely.
You can do that as part of a long-term plan to also cut the deficit. So we're very focused on both pieces of that agenda.
Right. Well, I think that what you got to see is that we believe very sincerely that we have to restore some equity in our tax code, because that's got people a little bit disappointed. We've got to make sure that job creation is there on the table. And I do believe that if you're creating jobs, people go back to work, confidence goes up, people will then begin to participate, and then they will see some fairness in the system. Right now, people don't see fairness in the system, and that's what we've got to do.
So is everything on the table, everything from tax reform to entitlement reform?
Absolutely.
Everything's on the table, but how is it that we as Americans should believe or can believe that 12 of you, respectfully, can do what 535 of you couldn't do, even though the committee split right down the middle? What makes this group of 12 so magical?
Well, Tavis, there's no magic to the group of 12, but I do think that when members of Congress, Republicans, that's right, a little sprinkling is what we need. But when members of Congress went back home during the most recent break, they heard an earful from their constituent. It was important for people to get together, come together, and get something done. And as we reflect back on the 10 years of 9/11, the spirit of how the country was united, I hope we can unite in a way that meets the next big challenge, and that is getting the economy going again. I think that the bipartisan commission recommendations that have been out there in terms of the framework are the way to go. I don't agree with every recommendation in Simpson-Bowles or Rivlin-Domenici, but they provide the framework for how you have to deal with the tax reform piece, but you also have to look at some of the other programs and reform and modernize some of those in a way that we can make sure they're strengthened in the future. I think we can do it. Now, whether or not the group of 12 can do what was unable to be done, we're going to work hard at it.
That may be true. But remember, we're not starting from scratch here. Chris and I both served on the Biden group, and we worked on that. We had 10 meetings, averaging 2 hours per meeting. We've got the benefit of Simpson-Bowles. We got the benefit of Domenici-Rivlin. We've got all of those things side by side. It's been around now for more than 12 months, many of them. So we're not starting from scratch here, and we're just trying to bring all of that into this small group.
Good luck. Representatives Jim Clyburn and Chris Van Hollen.
Good to be with you guys.
Thank you. Tavis Smiley, thank you, I think.
Tavis! Tavis! We got, no, I'm going to keep Tavis on.